Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. Let's talk about Chris Eubank Jr.'s display against Liam Williams. I've been left absolutely baffled by some of the punditry and commentary. How is Chris Eubank Jr. getting criticised the way he's getting criticised? I do not understand. We'll get to that. We'll cover some of the criticisms and I'll explain exactly why I disagree with them, and we'll talk about how the fight went and what each guy did well. We'll start off with the first round, whereby Liam Williams actually started very, very well. He was messing with the range. He was making Chris Eubank fall short and he was countering him and he looked good. And I'm sitting there thinking this is going to be a good fight. It's going to go exactly as we expected in the preview, whereby Liam Williams is going to frustrate him early on. As he begins to slow down as the fight wears on, you're going to see him fall into the pocket of Eubank, that grinding sort of pocket, and he's going to start to get outworked in big exchanges. You're going to see both guys land big shots, and potentially Chris Eubank could get to him late on. But that I wouldn't be surprised if Liam Williams was to outwork him and we could see him win the fight on points. That's not what we saw, though. What we saw is that in that first round, when Williams was doing so well, Eubank timed him with a jab come shovel hook, hurt him and dropped him. And Liam Williams never seemed to recover from that. Now, why has this punch resistance seemingly gone? Was he just caught with a monstrous shot that he couldn't recover from? I don't think so. These are shots that weren't knocking Liam Williams down in the past. Was it a weight draining issue? You know, you had the pundits and the commentators talk about the fact that maybe Liam Williams hasn't made the weight well. If that's the case, he's got a serious problem moving forward, because he used to be a light middleweight. He's now operating at middleweight. He does indeed look very muscular. If he has outgrown the middleweight division, he's in serious trouble, because he's going to be operating with sharks at super middleweight, and it's not a skill set that I think does particularly well there. But even that aside, you have to look at the way these shots were landing. Chris Eubank was getting on his toes on the back foot, and every time he'd be moving backwards so well that Liam Williams would be falling in. And by falling in, Chris Eubank's timing and accuracy with that lead left hand was excellent. He was placing it so well, landing consistently. Now, when Liam Williams was starting to move his head a little bit more, bypassing that jab and trying to come inside, he was eating right uppercuts. Chris Eubank looked fantastic at points. Now, from the fifth round onwards, the commentary team started talking about Liam Williams outworking Chris Eubank Jr. It did start to happen, but for me, it was more like from round 8 and 9 rather than round 5, because with round 5, as he started to come in more and he started having a bit more success for sure. And at one point, he even rocked Eubank. He landed a right hand and he seemed to affect him a little bit. But Eubank was still timing him with those little shovel hooks as he was falling in, and those little straight, solid jabs. And he wasn't getting credit for it. He'd be landing every time Williams was trying to come in. Then Williams would land a jab of his own and the crowd would roar, and he was getting bigged up for it. He was getting credit for it. Eubank wasn't getting credit for these little shadowy, silent sort of shots on his way in, timing him on his way in. When have you ever seen Eubank get on his toes and move like that, by the way? Fantastic. And that shows some of the work that he's been doing with Roy Jones Jr. Now, in the past, I've been less than sold. And listen, there were areas there that are still deficient. The reason I was less than sold of him working with Roy Jones Jr. is because I felt that he has yet to really master the pressure fighting game. And you heard Michaela Mayer and Johnny Nelson post-fight talking about how they were disappointed in him that he couldn't put his foot on the gas and go and get the knockout. Well, to do that, he would have had to have started to chase down Liam Williams. Because when Liam Williams was falling in the latter half of the fight, he was falling all the way in, which was smothering his own work, but also breaking the construct of Eubank. So Eubank would be landing one shot or two shots even on Williams' way in. William would then land one of his own and then fall into Eubank, break their construct, and Eubank couldn't let go of combinations as he usually likes to do. So that prevented the ability of the stoppage to come. But what it also meant is that when Williams was quite clearly hurt, Eubank also didn't show the ability to get on the front foot, fight like a proper pressure fighter, close that range, which we've spoken about before he struggles to do. He wants you to come to him and start to work on Williams. He wasn't doing that. It even got to the point where he was sort of mocking Williams, saying, come on, let's go, let's go. Part of that is to cover the fact that Eubank couldn't chase him, right? So I'm not saying he's the finished article by any stretch of the imagination, but you could see some of the things that Roy Jones has added. There were points where Liam Williams was throwing these right hands from out of range, just out of range, or just on the edge of range as he was getting desperate. And it looked like they'd be landing. And you'd see Eubank would just roll off the shoulder, turn the head just to take something off of the shot. Little things, the sort of thing that Granados did to Conor Benn. And he was making him miss as a result of that. But with Granados, he wasn't offering anything in return offensively. You could see this was a Tim Witherspoon move, by the way. He used to love to do that. But you could see that with Eubank, he was timing Williams on the way in. So he was landing and then not really being caught flush consistently. Now, it did start to get to the point where there was a bit more movement and the change of height dynamic from Liam Williams. And when he would slip on the inside and figure out the trajectory of that right uppercut, he would then be able to avoid that and have success by landing some jabs, slip inside, landing a jab. But even then, Eubank's ability to roll with that shot, he was caught with some big shots. There's no doubt about it. Right hands as well. And he was rocked on more than one occasion. But he would find the ability to roll with that shot so that even if it landed flush, even if he didn't roll with it 100% as he would have liked to, his movement, the trajectory of his movement would take him away in a rotational manner, coming off of the line rather than retreating in the line, which would take the ability of Liam Williams away from being able to work off of that first phase of attack. When Eubank wasn't then pivoting out and he was staying in that line, because Williams was so desperate to close the range, he would fall into Eubank, and that's when you'd start to see him smother his own work. So generally speaking, the movement of Eubank was something that we've never seen like this before. This was fantastic from Chris Eubank Jr. Defensively, he was much better than he usually is. In the past, one of the things I've been critical about Eubank is that when he does come away, like I said in the preview, he'll turn off to the side and step back from change his height dynamic and step back. He's not in a position to counter you. Today he was. He would be moving backwards and throwing a little left hand as he was doing that to back out, and then often rotating back with a right uppercut or shovel hook. I thought Eubank did a really good job today, and I don't understand the criticism of why didn't he put his foot on the gas? Why didn't he? Yeah, okay, there's an area there where he has to improve. But what you should be saying is Chris Eubank Jr. put in a lot of success in the bank early in the fight. In the early to middle rounds, he was still in control. He was landing and timing Liam Williams. He started to get outworked in the latter half of the fight. Round 11, he was lucky because he was losing that round and that wasn't a knockdown. But he always had it in the bag. He was always a few steps ahead. He needs to also add to that now the ability to be able to switch it up and chase a guy down and him move forward rather than waiting for the guy to be lured into his own wheelhouse. You need to create that pocket around him. See it like a lasso, right? Like Cowboys, you're the one grabbing him and bringing him in. You're the one, you're not luring him in, you're chasing him. You're the predator now. You're not just a guy who's running and luring the prey in. Yes, that would be a fair comment to make. But this idea that Chris Eubank was somehow unable to do certain things and how it was a disappointing performance, and sorry, this was a 50-50 fight on paper, potential fight of the year candidate. That is a career best win and career best performance for Chris Eubank Jr. in my humble opinion. We'll talk a little bit about what he's going to be doing moving forward from here in a video that I'll be releasing tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know what you think. Chat to you soon. Take care. Oh wait, before I go, one more thing. Conor Benn actually tweeted to say that he's willing to fight Chris Eubank Jr. at a catchweight. I fancy my chances at a catchweight. This is not a good fight for Conor Benn. In my humble opinion, Chris Eubank Jr. wins that fight. If they ever announce it, I'll do a technical breakdown. Thanks for watching, everyone. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.